Today I'm going to tackle the first board of the new layout, but rather than start from scratch, what I thought I'd do is see if I could use a couple of old boards from a previous DC layout and convert them into DCC. Please click here to follow the progress from its start to its eventual finish. It could be months, but it could be years. Well, welcome back to Chadwick TMD, and the planning phase is starting to take shape. Up on the board behind me, I've drawn out a small plan of what I perceive the first stage to be. So this is this end of the tail chaser, and the other end goes back down the other side of the room. And Chadwick TMD, the original layout, is a section that will go in here. I'm trying to concentrate this time more on the scenics. So what I thought I'd do is this station area here, that kind of come out the station throat, and it will go through a small cutting with a larger hill going up here and a small hill here, and then over a viaduct split into two. One stage then goes into another hill and then in behind the old Chadwick, and the other loop that comes round goes across the front of Chadwick and then off down to the other end. Fortunately, I've got a board that I've kind of upcycled from a previous layout, and this board is made of 12mm chipboard on a 2" by 1" planed frame. As you can see, there's a turntable at one end. There's the two tracks that will go around and over the viaduct, and these sidings then will fan out into the station. It's a previous DC layout, so several modifications will have to be carried out to the track itself, so it then becomes viable to operate it on DCC. But it's quite straightforward. I mean, it's a good rigid board, and there's no reason why I should throw this one away when a few small modifications will do quite well. The cupboards at the end here have to go because this board will actually go into that corner, and then what I thought I'd do is then start to build the layout around the room. So once I've got this corner started, the rest of it then can follow on and take shape from there. So looking at this board in closer detail, you can see where the original plan was to have the steam facility up there on the right hand side, and you can see where the board's been cut to put in the inspection pits running up towards the loco shed and then on into the turntable. I do require at the other end six lines running down, and currently I have 7. I want 2 to run straight through the station, and then the outside 2 for platforms, and then a couple of sidings, so nothing too problematic to do there. But I will have to pull out some of these points to start again, and one point in particular, I don't know how, but managed to install an initial frog rather than an electro frog, and that will have to go because I mean, they're quite problematic really. Hopefully you've seen some of my previous videos, and you'll know that Chadwick is now stored away whilst I get on with the rest of this project, and here it is in the corner of the room up on end, and there's the wiring that goes with that. I must confess I am a little bit of a wiring enthusiast. I do like my cables. So taking a look at this old board on its side, you can see that the wiring isn't quite measuring up to my current standards, to be perfectly honest. The colours are all over the place, and I'm quite insistent that I always like red and black for the ring main running around the layout for the bus bar, as it were, and red is always on the red rail is always the inside rail, and the black rail is the outside rail. It's kind of straightforward. And points, I use green for switching the frog, and the other 3 cable colours are white, blue and yellow. And then by running those cable colours right through the layout, when you get a wiring snag because you've got a dry joint or whatever, you don't really have a snag. So it's just a case of being methodical with your wiring, wiring it up as you go, and then your problems should diminish really. So I'll get on and rewire this, probably install a DS64, which is obviously the component then which runs the point switching for the Digitrack system, and we see how we get on. So that's the downline out of the way. I've removed the points, and that the curved initial frog point has gone, and obviously I removed the other point, and I'll reuse that. That's why I used a warm water mix to kind of melt the PVA adhesive that's in the ballast, and it comes up quite easy. As you could see, I pulled the track out, and the track will get binned, but obviously what I intend to do is to reuse the points. So what I'll do now is I want to convert this, the up line here coming out of the station, this will be the fast line that goes straight through the station, and so that will remove this point, and I'll take it back to there and then put in one track running straight through. Of course, one thing that you need to consider when converting a DC layout into a DCC layout is the short circuits that you can get when you're using electrofrog points. Here on this Y point here, there should be two insulated rail joiners on a DCC layout, but as it was a DC layout, when laid it just was ordinary metal joiners to come straight through. So you don't need to remove the point and insert the joiners. What you just need to do is cut the rails so that when you switch the polarity of the frog, the other two lines aren't affected. So what I need to do is kind of get a Dremel type tool and just cut through both rails. And I'll leave the gaps. I'll just put a small piece of plastic to stop the rails expanding and moving and getting a short circuit. So I'll cut through those two. And also back up to this one here. So what I shall do now is remove the other leg of this upline, the fast track, and similar to how I did it before. So I'll soak all this in warm water, lift up the track, remove the point, and hopefully take a bit of care when I pull that one out so I can reuse it, and then take it back to there and remove all the ballast on the track. Rather than do a time lapse on this one, I'll do this one in real time so you can see the kind of time it takes, and it isn't that long at all really. Just a case of getting the water on there and giving it a few minutes to soak in. A little bit messy, but there we go. And I'm using reasonably warm water, though, you know, obviously it's clearly not boiling. And then just tease the track off. Obviously, if there's any pins, you'll clearly need to pull the pins beforehand, and it comes up relatively easily. Like I say, my main reason is to keep these points, which is what I would like to do. The first one away. there is a foam underlay, sorry, a cork underlay on these rails, and that may well come up at the same time, which is no big deal. I can't remember if there's pins on this one or not. Yes, there are. And there we go, just a case of cleaning it up and relaying the final fast track that comes straight through. So before I start thinking about laying down some cork, I thought I'd just sort of scope out where the track's going. And this, just using some old track, this is kind of where the fast track of the upline is going to go. So in here there'll be, in this area here, there'll be a platform running right through to the next board. That track will go behind the platform, that one will be served by the platform as well, and this is the upline fast track going straight through the station. Just popping some points kind of in place. I'll have to put a small curve in there. So here I've got a couple of pico medium radius points. I always use pico points for two reasons really. I think they're better than Hornby, and the other thing, they're made in this country, so why do we need to go and buy Chinese track when actually we can buy good quality track in this country? So that's why I'm kind of a pico enthusiast. So that's those 2 points in there, and these are both electro-frog points, and I'll come back to those later on, probably in another video. Anyway, these tracks will go in kind of here, and again using that track gauge, so try to pop it in the right kind of position, so that'll go in kind of there, and then this will be the other, so that's the fast track going straight through the station. This one will come alongside the station platform, and that'll kind of go there, all roughly done. And then this, finally, this piece of track here will probably go down into a DMU kind of a dead end kind of siding, you know, back down into the station area. So that's the kind of the plan as I see it. Maybe that will probably come around that way a little bit more. So what do we do next? Well, the next thing I need to do is put some cork down and then lay this properly until we get on. The cork I'm going to use is in old money, it's 36 inches by 24, so 3 foot by 2 foot by 1/16 of an inch thick. This is the stuff here. It's made by Javis,
and seems quite reasonable. What I normally do is I cut it into 40 millimeter strips normally, but for this piece here, what I'm just going to do is lay it out, stick it down, and then cut it, and then remove the bits in between, and then pin the track down. It's worth mentioning on these Pico Electro Frog points that on the frog here, you have to use insulated rail joiners on the ends of on this V structure here, so that when this frog is switched, you don't short out with the against the rails coming the other way. And there's a couple of modifications you can make to these points, and that is that if you bridge across these rails here with a small piece of wire across there, then you get far better conductivity along this rail. You're not relying on the power being taken from there to there just by it touching its face if you get dirt in here, but the power is actually taken down the rail and you get better running. But if before you do that, you have to snip a small piece of wire that's located across there. So the routine is you simply snip those two and then wire across there. If you want me to see me to do that, then just put it in the comments below, and I'll make a separate video. One other little thing on these points is if you're going to use a point motor that's underneath the board, then you don't need these tabs that poke up. And you can see it. You see it on model railways throughout the country, in all the magazines, and you see these wretched tabs that are left up, and it's to put a surface-mounted point motor. Well, they drive me to distraction, they really do, and I simply just snip those off, and then when you lay these things down, they don't get in the way. And you look at a railway magazine at someone's wonderful layout, and you see these great big two brown studs poking up. So anyway, that's what I do. It's just a personal preference, but there we go. Well, that's this one wrapped up for today. I'm trying to push a video out at 12 o'clock every Friday. So next Friday it will be, hopefully the track will be down, the points will be in and wired, so that should be all good to go. In the meantime, of course, then you can always watch this video here, or perhaps this video here. You know you've got time, go on, pick one of them, you can do it.